Alright, we've made it 2020, January, the month we are currently in while I'm recording this. The third, US assassinates top Iranian general Soleimani. So to retaliate, Iran hits some bases after fair warning has been given so they can be empty. But amongst all the pressure and paranoia that would come with setting off missiles, Iran shoots down a Ukraine flight leaving Tehran, killing all 176 people on board. And the Ayatollah led the Friday prayer, which is kind of a big deal because the last time he did that was 2012. So yeah, we'll quickly go to the people of Iran and then I'll wrap this all up.
شهدا سینه زن حسین فاطمه بودن ازاس امروز ازاس مرد بر آمریکا شهدتر انتقام الله هممز رو به قبله دعای سلامتی آقا امام زمان خوبی که در
up by 0.9% over the year.
In the last quarter, they've come down 1.5%.
Not a quarter. Over the year, they're up by 0.9%, and they have increased every year for the last 5 years.
Well, they are coming down right now, Barry. And if we go right back, when we got into government,
that's not what the figures say.
Climate change.
I've got no idea, but does it really matter?
Sorry, you have no idea whether...
I'm not a scientist. Haven't made an opinion one way or another, but I don't think it really matters. I think...
Sorry, I just want to be clear on this. You're not sure whether man-made climate change is real?
No, I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have an opinion, but I don't think it really matters.
Fuel over the period of time, 30 plus years, that it's come to this stage now. If you're going to have a Royal Commission into it, throw bloody climate change out the window and let's look at the pure facts of why we have had the bushfires, how they were handled.
Response to these fires erupting in Australia was to go and lie on a beach in Hawaii. And that was a dereliction of his duty as leader of Australia. You're facing now one of the greatest crises you've ever faced. And there is you, Mr. Kelly, with respect, a senior politician who still doesn't think this has anything to do with a heating up planet. Nothing to see here, nothing to worry about, as virtually your entire country is eviscerated by fires. It is quite extraordinary.
This is a terrible disaster. This is one of our nation's worst natural disasters. And the question we have to do too, in the past when we had these in our nation, we all sat back and we got and did what we could to fix it up, rather than people get out there to score political points.
Have to leave it.
Docked in Circular Quay, the ship declared it had a mystery respiratory illness on board.
The emails confirm that the government and New South Wales Health knew that there were unwell passengers and passengers that had the symptoms of COVID-19. This is the greatest public health disaster in the history of this state.
The ship docked in Sydney just over 2 weeks ago, with nearly 2,700 people allowed to disembark. That was despite around a dozen of them getting tests for COVID-19. Before those results came back, passengers were getting in taxis, buses and boarding planes, heading to cities and towns across the country.
PM, we've seen countless statues pulled down around the world because of links to slavery. This is off the back of Black Lives Matter. In London, the mayor is saying that every monument is now up for review. And one of the statues in the UK with a question mark now is of Captain James Cook. How do you feel about the removal of these statues?
Well, when you're talking about someone like Captain James Cook, in his time, he was one of the most enlightened persons on these issues you could imagine. I mean, Australia, when it was founded as a settlement, as New South Wales, was on the basis that there'd be no slavery. And while slave ships continued to travel around the world, when Australia was established, yeah, sure, it was a pretty brutal settlement. My forefather and foremothers were on the first and second fleets. It was a pretty brutal place, but there was no slavery in Australia.
Back up! Back up! Get on the ground.
A lot of people in our audience doing, in our community, doing really amazing things. Like, we are absolutely all peers here. It's fucking awesome. But, like, you know, trying to be a good human being, other things like that, that maybe we should also think about when we measure somebody's achievement.
Soup. And they throw the cans of soup. That's better than a brick because you can't throw a brick. It's too heavy.
Senator, I think what you mean by robo-debt is compliance per se. Is that what you mean by robo-debt?
No, I think everybody pretty well understands what robo-debt is. The only term that we've used today that no one understands or is questioning is what legal insufficiency. You know, robo-debt's robo-debt. We know what that is. Can you answer the question? It's actually not a term of art. It's not something that's used by the department. So maybe we could have a definition.
So I'm sorry, Chair, I don't know what robo-debt means.
That is an extraordinary admission at this point.
Because in the context of
Senator Bernie Sanders to tax the wealth that billionaires have added to during the pandemic. The senator released that proposal yesterday. It would impose a one-time 60% tax on billionaire gains between March 18th of 2020 and January 1st of 2021. Those funds would be used to pay out-of-pocket health care expenses for all Americans for a year. If the taxes were calculated right now, based on the gains we've seen in the market, here's what some billionaires would pay. Jeff Bezos would be on the line for nearly $43 billion. Elon Musk would pay $27.5 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, well, he'd have to pay about $23 billion. And Walmart's Walton family would pay nearly $13 billion. Andrew, obviously, probably something that's a non-starter, but it's certainly going to be an exercise that has people running through what billionaires have made and where that money could go.
The other issue, by the way, and I'm sure other shareholders who might not otherwise be sympathetic with the Jeff Bezos would become sympathetic with the Jeff Bezos, is because he would have to sell his shares to actually pay the tax bill, in which case all of a sudden there would be an overhang on the stock and people would get upset about whether, the value of their stock is going to go down effectively because he has to sell his shares.
Well, and also just how much control you lose over a company at that point, too. A lot of these founders like to keep their company to make sure that they can continue to do it. Some of them can do it through a different voting share structure, but not all of them have that set up, and Amazon doesn't.
Right. That's true. That's actually very, very, very true.
Yeah.
Meantime,
didn't Bezos sell like
Didn't he sell like $3 billion worth of stock earlier this week? How much?
He sells down regularly to pay for his space explorations. That's
yeah.
That's typically
Must be nice.
So it seems to me that if we do a really good job, we'll not only hold the death down to a level that is much lower than the other way, had we not done a good job, but people are talking about July, August, something like that. So it could be right in that period of time where it washes through. Other people don't like that term, but where it washes through.
Turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older
exactly.
young people, to plenty of young people.
So
What's going on in
give me a moment of talking to somebody, going through this with Fauci or somebody who kind of it caused a pivot in your mind, because it's clear just from what's on the public record that you went through a pivot on this to, oh my God, the gravity is almost inexplicable and unexplainable.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
Sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Go away. No, it'll go away. Things go away.
A call for a permanent national fleet of firefighting aircraft has been rejected by the federal government in its response to the Bushfire Royal Commission. The government says it won't replicate what the states already have.
Okay guys, I want to go through a quick rundown of natural disasters that have happened over October 2020. And we'll start off with there were floods in India, in Cambodia and Vietnam, flash flooding in Italy and France, and now to fires. There were forest fires in Syria, and Mount Kilimanjaro was also on fire, and I believe South Africa has been hit with a fair few fires this year. Now over to America, the USA, 4 million acres have been burnt in California. And if we go down to the continent of South America, there have been fires in Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia and Brazil. And this just came in of another storm that's hit the USA.
Montage. States are closing their borders to South Australia as the country's most concerning outbreak in months grows. There are now 17 people infected in an Adelaide cluster. The next day.
Good evening. South Australia's COVID outbreak has tonight grown with 5 new cases and more than a dozen suspected infections.
Next morning.
As of midnight tonight, we need our community to pause for 6 days.
Meanwhile,
yes, the borders are completely open.
The next morning.
Well, the police commissioner has fired back at criticism workers at Medi Hotel should only have one job after it was revealed a security guard spread the virus at his second job. Grant Stevens says it's unreasonable to stop any worker from having multiple employers.
The lie was the person claimed that they'd purchased a pizza from the pizza shop, where in fact they were working there and had been working there for several shifts.
12 o'clock midnight.
As midnight struck, some couldn't wait a moment longer for a taste of freedom.
The next day.
Children in South Australia will head back to school today after the state emerged yesterday from a short-lived lockdown.
The very next evening.
Good evening. An urgent investigation's been launched into the latest twist in the Parafield COVID cluster. It again brings into serious question the security at Pepper's Medi Hotel.
They caught the virus right here in the hotel.
The next morning. A dedicated coronavirus quarantine facility will be set up in South Australia to take on positive COVID-19 cases from hotel quarantine. It comes after a couple in isolation at an Adelaide hotel tested positive to the virus. The next day.
But a new positive coronavirus case in an Adelaide school has sparked urgent health and isolation warnings.
Go apple! Go orange! Go banana!
Brunch is still cancelled.
Is truly repugnant. It is deeply offensive, deplorable behaviour. I would hope we can sit down and start.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping up.
Look how I'm living up. Police be tripping up. Yeah, this is America. Guns in my area.
Shocking claims against the meatpacking company. The lawsuit filed by the son of one of the Waterloo workers who died with coronavirus alleges that a plant manager organized a betting pool on how many workers would test positive. Today, Tyson says the employees allegedly involved have been suspended without pay. Tyson also says it has hired a law firm to conduct an investigation. The lawsuit also claims the company did not provide enough personal protective equipment to employees, and the sick and symptomatic employees were encouraged to keep working. Back in July, we reported that thousands of Tyson employees at several plants in the state tested positive for the virus.
That's one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. The fact that the management had a betting pool. Oh my God. Okay, now over to India, because if you want to see a protest, this is a freaking protest.
Hundreds of thousands of protesters are blockading some of Delhi's major arterials, and they're here for the long haul. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the farmers arrived with plenty of food. They've set up camps and healthcare clinics.
This is my home now. We have to live here for months, and we have come prepared. We will not leave here until they have agreed to our demands.
The protests had been simmering for months in the nearby food bowl states of Punjab and Haryana. 2 weeks ago, they marched on the nation's capital. They weren't welcomed.
We have deliberately kept agriculture impoverished, and so the farmers' anger has been building up over the years.
The reforms would open the agricultural sector up to private investment, as well as remove middlemen who manage sales and distribution. Farmers worry that will lead to lower prices, but the government maintains it's about empowering them.
Because there are such limited number of buyers, they tend to wield an influence over prices.
Agriculture is a vital sector of the Indian economy, employing more than 40% of the population. Many farmers own relatively small plots of land and are worried the reforms will see them bought out or bullied by big business.
It's often said that in Punjab, the only culture is agriculture.
The Indian government is now offering some concessions after negotiations broke down, but farmers are refusing to budge. James Oaten, ABC News.
Guys, 40% of India's population, 40% is like 550 million people. And now let's hop on over to Australia and see what we've been up to in regards to workers'
The most
rights.
contentious aspect of the government's workplace changes appear dead, buried and cremated. Just 24 hours after unveiling the legislation, a concession.
The focus has been on 4 paragraphs in 1 page so far, but can I tell you there's going to be plenty in it to keep everyone interested and alert.
The government had proposed giving COVID-affected businesses the ability to strike temporary agreements with employees to cut pay and adjust conditions for 2 years, rallying Labor and the unions for a campaign not seen since the days of work choices.
Will the Prime Minister back down on the cut to take-home pay that he claims he hasn't made?
No, we won't, because we haven't done it.
Undeterred, Labor MPs asked what aged care workers, supermarket stackers, cleaners and pharmacy assistants might lose under the IR changes.
With stimulus than we are without stimulus. I don't think the $2,000 checks make much sense.
Dominion has stated the company has no ownership relationship with the Pelosi family, the Feinstein family, the Clinton family, Hugo Chavez, or the government of Venezuela. Neither Dominion nor Smartmatic has any relationship with George Soros. Smartmatic is a U.S. company and not owned by the Venezuelan government, Hugo Chavez, or any foreign official or entity.
Stigma Vision. Hey, Sam and crew, I'm Australian, so I'm a 26-year-old with a Medicare card. Anyway, I've gained a TikTok following this year of 35,000, and 73% of them are in the U.S., so I try and point out that there's a better way and that your system is nonsensical. Oh, and the Libertarian Hype House wanted to debate me, so I felt like the Sam Cedar of TikTok. That's awesome. That is doing that, showing people how easy your system is. You should also do it for like things like unemployment and stuff like that. Like whatever you can show that there's another way is very, very helpful. I miss Michael so much, but I'm loving Emma on the show. Thanks so much, Emma, for helping it hurt a little less. Keep the fantastic work, guys, and happy holidays.
Thank you.